What do you believe humanity consistently misunderstands about itself?
What does humanity consistently misunderstand about itself? We misunderstand the nature of power and abuse it. Um, we could today, right now, without AI, without anything else, we have the technology, we have the intelligence, we have the sciences, we have the resources, we have the natural resources, the financial resources, the human resources to solve every single one of the fundamental problems facing humanity, from hunger to starvation to clean water to education to jobs, housing, employment. We can solve those problems, but we don't. Question I ask myself all the time is what's keeping us from doing what we're perfectly capable of doing. And that gets down to our roots of bias and tribalism and hate and greed and hubris and pride. Michael Crichton was a medical doctor. He had real issues with the objects, with the science of cloning and DNA manipulation. He could have written a really well done scientific treatise or white paper to his other fellow doctors to basically discuss the ethics of what they were doing. And it would have been interesting to eliminate degree, but if he really wanted to capture people's imagination, he had to put that into a narrative and ask the simple question of take advanced technology, human greed and pride, put them together and ask the simple question, gee, what can go wrong? And that created a multi-billion-dollar franchise. And so it's not a question of what do we misconceive about ourselves? It's what are we unwilling to admit about ourselves?
Hmm.
And that really is the core nature of what creates that kind of hubris and pride and self-destruction. Every single major forward everything that's moved us forward as a society, a lot of it is based on people of will that are willing to risk everything to be in power, and they keep moving us forward. Now, sometimes that has some benefits that, benefit most people, not often. Most of the time, it's what makes us have to restart over. I mean, we have to rebuild that town. We have to replant that field. We have to regrow those children that were lost to war. And so it's what we're not willing to admit about ourselves and deal with that. We're not willing to be self-reflective as a species. We are as individuals, but as a species, we don't seem to be able to get past that idea that, gee, that person has power. He must be better than I am, rather than, gee, that person's in power. There's something wrong with his soul.
That's huge. That's huge. And I think like power is super important to figure out how we can do things because there are real problems that we're trying to solve. And so power is needed to actually overcome that, and how we use our resources matters. It's always have that question of what it takes to push us to a point of discomfort where we get over the um, typical all just the rote way we live through life and just given to routines and whatnot. How do we push past that to start saying how do we attack these problems in real ways, and how do we like bring all these resources together to be the power, to be more powerful, to actively overcome these obstacles. And like I think you led a bunch of teams, you've done a bunch of great things where you were building yourself up from nothing to who you are, and then you continue to gain more knowledge, gain more education, and then we're able to build teams as well to pull that together. What was that like?